I don't even want to talk to you people. I shouldn't have to talk to you people. You read the title, you know exactly what you clicked on. You all know how to read unless your name is ImnotIso, in which case, please start streaming, you no-timer. Tokon Fighters looks absolute gas, a Marvel fighting game like I had always dreamed of, and it was made by Arc Systems. I seen what they could do with Dragon Ball Fighters and I'm foaming at the mouth to play it. Unfortunately, I'm an Xbox heathen, but luckily I have plenty of time to save up for a new PC even though I just missed the beta. Hopefully, maybe. Just look at this, an Iron Man design inspired by Super Sentai. Ultraman Iron Man, Ultra Iron Man. Look at Cap in that jacket. That is the hardest Captain America design I've ever seen. Look at Dr. Doom straight aura farming. I am absolutely in love with Storm's design. Other characters who I also love. I'm skipping all the festivities. I'm skipping all the pleasantries this game time. I'm not explaining the rules. You know the rules. If you don't, watch my other videos. If you don't watch my other videos, die. I don't care. Die. This is going to be part prediction video, part game time, where I try to guess and build a roster for the upcoming Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. But first, we got to figure out how many people are on the roster. This is a real tough one to decide, considering this is not only Arc Systems games, but it's a team fighter. Arc Systems games are known for their small roster, but since this is a larger team fighter with 4v4 combat, and also with a licensed property and a likely higher budget, it's safe to say the roster is going to be bigger for this title, but that's not the question. The question is how many fighters will there be? Guilty Gear Strive released with 15 fighters and over time through DLC came to a current 28 character roster with possible future additions. However, there are other aforementioned licensed game fighters had 21 characters on release with 23 characters added later to make up a total of 44 characters. These two games were the highest grossing games in Arc Systems library, and this is a huge property in Marvel. So we're safe in saying the game will have a higher budget, but I'm not sure if that'll amount to much. I think the game will have a higher base roster than any Arc Systems game, but won't have as long a life as the others in terms of updates and post-release content. I want to be realistic with this roster rather than just naming a bunch of characters we want to see be added. As a result, I'm inclined to think that the game is going to release with around 28 characters, but with everything I said before, I think the base roster is going to increase to a massive, whopping, incredible 30 characters. With that said, 8 characters have already been announced in Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, Ms. Marvel, Storm, Dr. Doom, Star-Lord, Captain America, and Iron Man. Let's go over just who I think the other 22 characters are going to be, starting with It's so obvious that I'm upset this wasn't my first idea. Dr. Doom is in the game, and this game is a 4v4 fighter. If the Marvel 4-man team, the Fantastic Four, isn't on this roster, this is a missed opportunity so big that even Kevin Feige, who probably has no idea this game even exists, would shake his head. Disney would shake their heads. Their movie just dropped and they were recently all added to Marvel Rivals and are currently, at this point in time, some of the best characters in the game. So there's nothing left to talk about except how they would play. I've already talked about how important these 4 are to Marvel multiple times, so let's talk about it. The thing would obviously be the powerhouse tank character, slow movement besides maybe a charge, armor on some special moves, and slow hitting but powerful normals along with a couple of grabs to flesh him out. And when he uses his ultimate ability, well, it's clobbering time. Human Torch would be a bit varied in his playstyle with normal jabs, a projectile where he spews flames, and maybe even a trap he can lay on the ground that could lead to cancels, but where he would excel was in the air. Extra air dashes, sustained flight in the air that could lead to new combo strings, and even extra specials and combo tools once he knocks the opponent into the air for a combo. Human Torch will be the character that you want to keep grounded at all costs when you fight against him, because once he starts getting into that rhythm, it's going to be hard to knock him out of it. Invisible Woman would be the obvious zoner meant to keep her opponent away at all costs while laying on the pressure. You can give her a special where she pushes or pulls the opponent in order to mess up their rhythm, or their footsies. She can put a shield up in front of her in order to block the opponent's keep away, and even some attacks like an Aegis shield while she creates her own pressure. We could give her her own move where she turns invisible, and it'd be pretty neat in concept, but moves where your character turns invisible rarely ever works in these type of games. Instead, Invisible Woman as a zoner would struggle when her opponent is up close, so to get around that, we can give her a counter where she turns invisible and the attack either phases through her like the opponent missed, or they whiff and she counters her like a parry. Mr. Fantastic is going to be real wacky unlike the others. He'd be another zoner, but rather than zoning with projectiles, he'd be like a Dhalsim type, keeping opponents away with slow but very long range normals. He can even have a long range grab where he reaches forward and pulls the enemy in before tossing them back into the mid range. But on top of that, Reed is one of the smartest, probably the smartest character in Marvel Comics, so to showcase that, I'd also make him the trap character. Not only would this help flesh him out, especially since we don't have a trap character in the roster, I believe, but we also have Miss Marvel who also has stretching power, so this is a good way to shake those two up. All of Fantastic Four's comics climax with the rest of the group holding off whatever foe they're fighting, while Mr. Fantastic creates whatever invention that will win them the day. He built the ultimate nullifier, so let's give him a bunch of specials where he lays traps around the field to continue his pressure and extend his combos. We're not quite into the unique picks yet, as we still have some heavy hitters to get through. And who heavier a hitter than the God of Thunder, Thor? Let's make Thor a heavy brawler and all-around type in this game. He can have a projectile where he throws the hammer, good damage with decent length combos, a buff, or maybe even an install where he surges with lightning and buffs all his attacks. A dash where he swings the hammer at the opponent while he still holds on. Thor would be a character with a low bar for entry but a high skill ceiling that makes him the jack of all trades but the master of none unless you master him yourself. I call Thor the heaviest of hitters, but I think someone would have a problem with that. Of course Hulk was always going to be in the game, and I can't wait to see just what destruction this Gamma monster is going to cause in Marvel Tokon, because let's be honest, he'll be in. Hulk is going to be the de facto grappler, the Potemkin of the game. Pure grabs, scooping up and slamming his opponents around with a mighty leap for mobility, slow normals, and some armored attacks. Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Hulk, and then Wolverine. If you could somehow fit 7 people on a Mount Rushmore, then this would be Marvel's Mount Rushmore. If you could fit 8, Captain America would be there. Wolverine would be without a doubt the rushdown character, going berserker mode on any opponent that stands in his path with endless pressure and multi-hitting specials. Except, unlike all the glass cannon rushdowns, Wolverine would also have some specials that make him unkillable. A special that when used busts him so that he takes less damage. And a character special where when a round ends, when Wolverine is on the team, the health bar goes back up with just Wolverine standing alone for a final flurry. No assist, but you got one more chance to get the win with Wolverine and squeak it out. There's no doubt in my mind that the King of Wakanda will make an appearance in Marvel Tokon. He's recently become a Marvel game mainstay featured in all their team-up games, and he also has a soon-to-release game with Captain America, so it'd be nice synergy. His game with EA also got quietly cancelled, so let's make up for it by putting him here. Black Panther would be the pure 50-50 mix-up character, moving around like a blur with unreactable mix-ups and a special bar that charges over time when he takes damage, that he can release as a burst with his vibranium armor. He'd have the ability to parry a projectile and dash in towards the opponent with a high-low mix-up all in the blink of an eye. Last time he was in a fighting game, he was just a Wolverine clone, so let's make sure he stands out with some tools and weapons from Wakanda, like a spear he can throw, or even something like Bolus that he can quickly throw to stun the opponent and begin his setup. We're already halfway through the roster and we talked about nothing but obvious picks, but we just can't come in here talking about Mothman and Dragon Man and Wonder Man. We've got to tease it. Speaking about a tease, we've got Emma Frost. A middle of the road pick. Emma is one of the most charismatic Marvel characters around and would absolutely excel in a fighting game environment. She can be the stance switcher of the game, switching between a regular psychic stance with unique abilities like being able to put her opponent in a trance that pulls them in, moves where she picks up objects in the background, or even creates her own objects to attack, and then she switches stances into her iconic diamond form where she turns into a powerhouse with grabs, armored moves, and hard-hitting normal. Finally, our first unexpected pick, we've got Clea Strange, the niece of Dormammu and sometimes wife to Doctor Strange. I struck up a bargain with Dormammu and he is forcing me to let Clea Strange be in this game, but to be honest, I think she's a great pick. She's a female character which these types of rosters could always use more of. She's a sorcerer which fills Strange's role, and Strange has been in enough of these games, he can sit this one out. And she can even borrow some moves from Dormammu himself from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom, which means she fills 3 roles in one character. Not to mention, she's an obscure pick and was featured in Strange's last movie outing, so this is as good a time as any to put some spotlight on her. Now this next spot certainly seems like the best point to add a Venom to the roster, but I'm not going to. Venom won't be with us today. Now everybody calm down, put the pitchforks down. Venom is absolutely in everything. So just like Doctor Strange, I think it's fine if he just sits one game out. But I got something better to take his spot. Carnage. Carnage could take his spot as a symbiotic user, but he'd play a lot different than a would-be Venom. Being absolutely ruthless in his offense, Carnage would be 100% offense and no defense to speak of, trying to slaughter his opponent as fast as possible. He'd be a glass cannon, but we could give him an interesting mechanic where he does more damage the lower his health is, meaning that when you've got Carnage in the kill zone, you better get rid of him fast before it starts to hurt hard. It even opens up new gameplay opportunities like playing the game normally with someone like Star-Lord and then switching to Carnage once you've taken enough damage to catch your opponent by surprise and slaughter them. I am genuinely surprised that neither Ant-Man nor the Wasp aren't in more Marvel games, considering they fill such a niche role that you couldn't find in really any other place besides Injustice 2. And who wants to play that? Oh, I'm gonna keep adding them to these lists until we finally get them in a game, and that continues with Wasp. She played a lot like Adam in Injustice 2 like I just mentioned, except she'd have dual blasters of her own rather than just a gun. And she'd have flight and quick air dashes even in tiny form. And for fun, we can even have Ant-Man show up for some moves or even her super, where you could turn giant and crush the opponent while Wasp cheers him on. Everybody forgets, but Wasp was a founding adventurer and she'd fit right at home in a game like this. Now my bias might be showing a bit, but don't worry, it's not that bad. I mean, Moon Knight's not here, although we all know I think he should be, but Magic just makes perfect sense to be here. Now you might think I'm just saying that because I recently uploaded a montage of her and I absolutely love her since I was a wee lad, but I mean, look at who's making the game. You mean to tell me that the people that made Soul Bad Guy, a badass with a giant sword and an install super with a demon monster form, wouldn't immediately look at Magic, a badass with a giant sword and her own demon monster form, and not immediately add her into the game? Look me in my eyes and tell me that doesn't make perfect sense. You can't. Magic is a perfect fit for the game and she belongs in the roster. Okay, now hear me out. This next pick is gonna leave you all confused, but trust me, it's for a reason. I think Silver Samurai actually has a decent shot of making the game. Arc System said for the roster they were also going to focus on selecting characters that nobody would think of, but also this game clearly has a very obvious Japanese influence when you look at the designs and settings, so it might make you think that there's going to be a bit of a focus on Japanese oriented characters. I think with Arc System's influence, Silver Samurai would be an unexpected standout character in the game. I mean, he's already pretty dope on his own. The sword can give him extra range on his normals, and he can be the Rekka fighter of the game with tons of specials that link into each other, forming long combos, which means if you're disciplined enough to learn the ins and outs of Silver Samurai, you'll be able to topple your opponents with ease. I feel like Cyclops is a no-brainer in this game. I'm surprised he's still not in Marvel Rivals, but think about how amazing he would be in this. How beautiful all his normals and even his super would look. He'd be the most obvious zoner character of all time with some up-close specials and combo tools, meaning he's not a total slouch up close. We can give him obvious laser attacks that he can fire in short bursts or shoot for an extended time like Superman in Injustice, and a move where he shoots his eyes at the ground, pushing himself back and creating space for himself. And of course, his super would be his fully powered charge with him holding nothing back and disintegrating his opponent. This roster could always use more villains, but I don't want to keep going down the same well of villains that everyone goes down and that we see every game. If we're gonna get outside the box hero picks, then we need more outside the box villain picks. Marvel has some awesome villains that deserve more spotlight, and one of them is Blackheart, the son of Mephisto in the comics and one of the main arch nemesis of Ghost Rider. We already see Ghost Riders in the game, but have yet to see Blackheart in a role where he can try and take him down a peg in one of these. His design is awesome, and he has a unique set of powers that we could turn into a fun moveset. He can use his signature demonic Black Roses to attack in some of his normals and special moves. He can shapeshift and grow in size with ease, which we can easily use to flesh out his moveset. And he even has the ability to shift states of matter, meaning we could give him an aerial mobility ability, say that 5 times fast, where he turns into a gas and moves around the level, which he could potentially use to mix opponents up, or a counterattack where he turns into a liquid state to weave past opponents' attacks. With his powers of necromancy, he can also be the closest thing we have to a summon fighter, where he could summon dead Marvel characters like Marvel, Bill Foster as Giant Man, or really anyone that you want to have make a cameo in the game. I hope you guys are buckled in, because I'm not gonna lie, for the rest of the base roster, I'm keeping it to strictly outside the box picks that I'd love to see make the roster, and I think might have a decent chance of making it. When I was looking at other people's rosters to see what characters a lot of people would like to see, I saw a surprising amount of Blackheart, and even a decent amount of people list Songbird. Who is Songbird? Songbird is a genetic experiment mutated by the company Roxxon that gave her special powers, which are basically Black Canary, if her shout also gave her Green Lantern powers. Yes, Songbird's shout allows her to form her own light constructs using the sound waves from her sonic scream. That's a pretty unique power, and it could lead to some really fun animations in the game. And she can even use the power in the comics to create wings and give herself a force field. So let's give her an air dash where she summons the wings to dash in or away from the opponent, and a force field that blocks her from projectiles as long as she stays in the radius. Songbird would be a zoner with some projectile attacks and a lot of knockback attacks that push the opponent even in a block and keep away, along with her air dash, meaning she has plenty of tools to keep the opponent pressured from full screen. During my aforementioned research, I was surprised by one thing, and that's how many rosters were completely leaving out the Guardians of the Galaxy. You guys do know they're not just gonna add Star-Lord and no one else, right? Now, do I think they'll have enough for a full team? I don't know, but the team will at least be getting 1 or 2 more characters like Gamora. Gamora would be a perfect fit for this game as the acrobatic assassin, Think Vega from Street Fighter, keeping the opponent grounded with her footsie game while jumping around the map and being hard to hit until she locks on and decides to make her move. Rocket and Groot are already in Marvel Rivals and they were in Infinite, so I thought it'd be fair to let another Guardians member sit in on the game, and Gamora is perfect. There's not really much I have to say to justify Blade's appearance in the game. Everyone loves Blade and he's not in nearly enough Marvel stuff. Look at how excited everyone got once he was finally added to Marvel Rivals. Hear me out, but I think Blade could be the Shoto character of the game. He can have a rising dragon punch where he swings his sword upwards with extra range, a long range projectile where he fires a gun at the opponent, a multi-hitting move with his sword, a command grab where he bites into the opponent which adds to a special bar. The longer the fight goes, the more the bar increases along with other moves like his command grab, and once it fills, he goes fully vampire, buffing his damage and giving him lifesteal in his attacks, and even a super move where he can use Dracula's sword for a lethal attack like in Marvel Rivals. I promise you I don't have a secret Gwenpool bias or anything, even though I also added her in the NetherRealm fighting game video. I just genuinely think that Gwenpool has a decent shot of making it into this game, especially if we add her adopted pet Jeff the Shark as part of her kit. Jeff has exploded in popularity and also intense hatred from all the Marvel fans after his inclusion in Rivals, and it makes sense to include him somewhere in this game as a result. I wouldn't make him his own character, but what better way to include him than along the side of Gwenpool. This could make Gwenpool part summon character like Phoenix Wright, or even maybe a puppet character if you choose to go that route. Alongside her specials with Jeff, she can have a bunch of wacky linking special moves to make her a Rekka fighter when she's not actively summoning. She could have crazy sword swings, gunfire, and bombs in her attack, along with a teleport. She jumps in and out of different comic panels to traverse the map. Jeff can shoot optic blast out of his eyes, teleport behind the opponent, and bite them while Gwen still has full control of herself, or even just spit at the enemy. She'd be our Deadpool replacement for the game with a little bit of extra flavor thrown in. If you want to get real wacky with the playstyles in this game, you gotta really think outside the box. Look at Guilty Gear Strive, it's got some real dynamic playstyles and none more like Faust, whose gimmick is that he never plays the same. Sure, he's all about mid-space control, but his bread and butter is creating chaos and improvising an attack plan with his item toss ability that spawns a random item every time, each with a different effect that Faust can use to help himself or hinder his opponent if he's quick or smart enough. I want to replicate something like that, so that's why I chose to add Legion, Professor Xavier's son. He is one of the most powerful mutants alive, but he has a severe psychological disorder or dissociative identity disorder that warps his brain at times. Due to his disorder, he has 1,000 different personalities, but here's the catch. Each personality is linked to its own superpower. Now hear me out on this. This is my weird pick, but not because Legion is weird, but because his moveset could be. We could make Legion a stance switcher with a couple, like 1 or 2 universal moves between each stance, and then give him multiple different stances where he changes personality and gains a new power. It sounds cool except for the fact that you never know which power is next because it's completely random. This makes Legion by far one of the hardest characters to learn, but once you master him and all his different stances, the opponent will never be able to get a read on it, because not even you will be able to get a read on yourself. A stance where he has telekinesis, another where he controls fire, one with ice, a stance that gives him psychic abilities, one where he stops time, another that gives him reality warping powers so he can just drop a truck on you. Imagine labbing this, the possibilities are endless. This roster could always use more villains, and who better a villain than the one who always seems to find his way back, Ultron. Ultron is simply one of the coolest Marvel characters ever, and one of the most beloved villains of all time, and he always deserves a second go after the mess that was Infinite. Ultron could be a powerhouse character with decent mobility in the air and even some trap moves in his game, making him have a little bit of everything. He can set traps for the opponents because his superior mind allows him to think ahead. some heavy keep away in his game as he fires lasers and Ultron bots at the opponent, a flight ability or air dash, and some normals and specials for brawling, but due to his slow normals and lack of tools up close, intense close range pressure would be his kryptonite. And his super could be him taking over the giant robot Ultimo and leveling the opponent in a heap. Well, those are your 30 characters for what I think will be the main roster for Marvel Tokon. The 8 we already saw get announced: Star-Lord, Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, Captain America, Storm, Doctor Doom, Miss Marvel, and then the other 2 characters we predicted. The Thing, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, Hulk, Thor, Wolverine, Black Panther, Emma Frost, Cleo Strange, Carnage, Cyclops, Silver Samurai, Gamora, Blackheart, Gwenpool, Legion, Ultron, Blade, Songbird. I think this is a great roster filled with obvious picks, fan favorites, and outside the box picks that could lead to new characters blowing up and fan bases being formed. Is it the perfect roster? Well, I made it, so I want to say yes, but I do know I left out some fan favorite characters. Characters that everybody's asking about. What happened to this guy? But when there's only 30 characters and we have to cover all reaches of Marvel's extensive library, there's only so much we can do. Luckily, we have a few seasons of DLC that can help ease the pain. Like I said, I think Tokon is going to end up pretty close to Dragon Ball FighterZ when all is said and done, and that game ended with 44 characters. Those games were filled with like 10 Gokus and 8 Vegetas though, so even though the rosters look close on paper, even if we added one more character, the roster would still be way more unique and varied in comparison to the FighterZ roster. So let's keep things simple for once. I'll do 3 seasons of DLC, each with 5 characters. 15 characters plus 30, meaning we've got 45 total different and unique characters to play once everything is said and done. As I normally like to do, I'm gonna have each season of DLC follow a theme, because I simply think it's fun when DLCs follow an overarching theme. So let's finally start with Season 1. Season 1 is going to follow a very simple, expected, and probably wanted theme, considering the base roster has a bit of a gap in terms of Marvel villains. None more so than Magneto. Of course, a lot of you are probably asking where Magneto was in the base roster, but I left them out simply because you need to leave out big names for the DLC in order to help the DLC sell better. With Magneto as our main name to advertise Season 1 with, I could have put him in the main roster, but let's all be honest with ourselves. Would Season 1 sell more with Songbird at the helm, or with the master of magnetism himself? Of course I was never going to leave him out. Just look at how much Doom is aura farming in all his animation and his victory. So now imagine what they could do for Magneto himself. We've already seen how Magneto plays in games like Marvel vs. Capcom, so we could just do more of that. Maybe borrow some moves from the game, give him an awesome design, and give him his pure rushdown and pressure character. Or if you want to make the game stand out, you can give him a unique, maybe defensive playstyle. I feel like with this character especially, you might see some similarities between this and my last roster, but that's just because some of these characters are awesome and fit right at home in a fighting game, and that goes for none other than Mystique. Mystique fills out a special role for our game, and you all already know what that role is. The copy character. She could steal moves, copy animations from other fighters, and maybe even be part cameo fighter, turning into other characters not in the game like Juggernaut or Toad, or even a big hitter like Apocalypse. She has better chance in this game than any as well, as they said they wanted to be outside the box with their choices. Another big name left out of the main roster, Scarlet Witch would be a perfect fit for the game, and that goes with her playstyle as well. She could be a very unique character, casting spells, sorcery, hexes, and destructive magic all around the field, as part zoner, trapster, and long-range mix-up, or a mind games character like Enchantress from Injustice 2. I love playstyles like this that aren't all about offense or defense, but rather utility, knowing your opponent, and getting in their mind as the match continues, and Scarlet Witch is perfect for that. Dishing out pure chaos in her super moves as well, until there's no more mutants left. One thing that I'd say that has been dearly lacking in the roster is the street level Marvel side of things, considering it's mainly just Spider-Man and kinda Black Panther, Blade, and Miss Marvel carrying the bulk of it. So let's add a street level villain in Bullseye. He'd obviously be the pure zoner with tons of different projectiles used to keep long range pressure on the opponent from full screen. Bullseye would be very simple in execution, but I know a lot of people would enjoy seeing him and playing as him in the game. But seeing him here would make you ask one question. How are you gonna have Bullseye but not Daredevil? Of course we're not gonna have Bullseye but leave out Daredevil himself, but this is a villain season, so what? Is this just 4 characters follow a theme, plus 1 extra like I did last time? No, Daredevil fits perfectly with the season, because we're not using the classic Matt Murdock Daredevil, we're using Elektra Daredevil. I know Elektra isn't pure villain and it's more in a gray spot, but she's played an antagonistic role enough that she won't be out of place in this lineup. Giving her the Daredevil helm also freshens up Daredevil and Elektra, as we've seen them in both these types of games before. And it combines both their playstyles into one character. We'll be able to have the acrobatic style of Daredevil, along with the ninja assassin skills of Elektra, leading this character to be a high skill, high movement, rushdown character that also specializes in baiting out a move from their opponent and counter-attacking properly. She wouldn't have many defensive tactics or a lot of health, but that would make sense as the last thing you want to do with Daredevil is get hit at all. Season 1 done. With the villain season over, let's move on to Season 2 with a brand new theme. As I mentioned earlier, with some of the characters, I believe the game is also going to have more Asian influence in their roster selection, which when considered with their other ideologies in picking the roster, I think Shang-Chi actually has a decent chance of making this game. He's back in the mainstream after his amazing Marvel movie, and he fills 2 roles in being an outside-the-box pick, but being a name that most people would recognize. We've never seen him in these types of games before as well, so he'd be a fresh, brand new face for the roster. Make him another Rekka conversion fighter, making him able to dish out long damaging combos and able to convert even the smallest of counterattacks into a multi-hit combo with enough discipline, meaning that if you have the patience to wait and counter, and the skills and reflexes to quickly transition it into any combo you wish, you'll have the ability to take on anyone with a master of martial arts in Shang-Chi. If you wish to, you could also make him a stance fighter, able to switch between various different martial arts like karate, Muay Thai, or even judo, giving him a pseudo grappler's playstyle. It's with the same reasoning that I add Shang-Chi that I also add Hawkeye, but not just any Hawkeye, but specifically the Ronin. The Hawkeye persona based off an almost samurai ninja that he brings out when he's getting serious, I'd be surprised if they didn't add him into the game. He could have various different trick arrows for range and utility, along with multiple different sword specials and normals for close range, meaning that you'd either want the opponent up close or far back. Mid-range would be Hawkeye's kryptonite, but as long as you can distance yourself well, you'd become a monster with him. Some of you may not know who Nico is, and some of you may know exactly who she is. She was recently in Midnight Suns, where I became in love with her character, but especially her ability set and playstyle. Nico Minoru is a witch with a power staff called the Staff of One that she can use in all of her attacks, which she can use to cast ultra powerful spells. She could be a setup character, setting up small traps or slowing down her opponent in order to charge her larger spells, or traps like Captain Cold in Injustice 2. And when you finally get the opening you need to charge your spells, she can unleash absolutely devastating attacks that could change the entire game. When playing against Nico, the last thing you would want is to give her the space and time she needs. I think she'd be an amazing perfect fit for the roster, and she's deserving of being in a game like this and of more people knowing who she is.
I know for a fact this next pick is gonna leave you all confused. I really needed that water. A lot of you probably have never even heard of Moondragon in your life, but that right there is exactly why she should be added into the roster. With Shang-Chi, Hawkeye, Nico, and now Moondragon, a lot of you are probably confused what this season is meant to be. And this season is simply all about filling out characters for some of the teams represented in the main game. There's gotta be a simpler way to word that, but it's not my time to figure it out. Shang-Chi fills out a full Thunderbolts team, Marvel Knights, and even Agents of Atlas. Hawkeye fills out the Thunderbolts, Avengers, West Coast Avengers, you name it, he makes any team better. Nico gives us a full Midnight Suns team with Ghost, Rider, Magic, and Blade, and now Moondragon gives us another Guardians member. After her parents were killed by Thanos, big shocker, she was rescued and raised by Mentor. Her father's soul was taken and used to create Drax. Fun fact, who I almost put in this roster. Sorry, Drax. She returned to Earth and joined the Avengers as Madame McEvil until she was kicked out due to her bad attitude. Eventually, she befriended Adam Warlock, dated Phyla Vel, and eventually joined the Guardians of the Galaxy, who she still rolls with today. She has the power of telepathy, able to control minds, alternate personalities, and perform mind shielding. She can wipe minds and modify memories. She can generate illusions, use telekinesis to fly, fire concussion blasts, and create force fields. And best of all, she has the power to turn into a dragon. We have a character that can turn into a dragon. You best believe I'm adding that into my fighting game. We can give her a special bar or a charge up ability that she can use over the course of a match. It can be a move that you charge up 4 times, each time taking about 5 seconds, and her entire playstyle would be around charging that bar up. She can have concussive blasts that push the opponent away, force fields that block projectiles and give her space to charge the ability, flight and extra air dashes to control space in the field of battle, pushing towards or getting away from her opponent, and even a memory wiping move that when hit against the opponent temporarily changes their special move inputs or just changes their controls entirely for a couple of seconds. And when she finally gets the 4 seconds she needs, she pushes the input again and turns into a giant dragon that takes up the whole screen and terrorizes the battlefield for like 10 seconds until the move ends. Meaning with Moondragon, your main game plan revolves around turning into a dragon, and if that's your opponent, that's the last thing you want to see her do. Lastly, in Season 2, we have Captain Marvel herself. Captain Marvel is a popular enough character that her inclusion in this roster would provide a lot of fanfare, and it'd be weird to have Miss Marvel in this game without Captain Marvel like what happened in Marvel Avengers, that pile of shit. Captain Marvel could be a heavy-hitting powerhouse with decent mid-range pressure and a long-range projectile in her Photon Blast and Photon Explosion, and we can even give her an install where she turns into full binary and unleashes havoc and massive damage on her opponent. Season 2 is said and done with, which means we have just 5 more characters that I believe could and should make it into Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. So let's close out this roster and video with our final season of DLC. And there was only one theme this DLC could be, starting with Gambit. That's right, this is an X-Men season. And who better to start off with than one of the most popular and coolest X-Men alive, Gambit. Gambit could excel in the mid to close range, focusing on knocking his opponents up with his kinetic energy and hitting extended combos with his staff, kinda like Takeda from MKX. He could prioritize close range pressure with poke and footsies, baiting out a mistake from his opponent and punishing them for it. Spoilers, Rogue isn't in the roster. I know I'm a sin on Earth, but we could feature her in some of his attack animations or especially his super move as a nice compromise since these two are rarely ever seen apart. I love Psylocke and she's always been one of my favorite X-Men, and I'd love to see the awesome design, animations, and playstyle this game could give her. Since I think this game is gonna have a heavy Japanese influence, how many times have I said that in the course of this video already? I don't think there's any doubt we'll see Psylocke in the roster. Who it is doesn't really matter, but since Psy is in Rivals, I'm leaning towards adding Betsy Braddock or even Quanon. I'm not even gonna try saying that shit. Psy could be a pure rushdown, opposing our other telepaths in the roster like Moondragon and Emma Frost, who are defensive or stance switchers. She could use her ninja skills to zip around the map with insane mobility and movement, dashing through her opponents with her sword and using her psychic abilities to keep up her close range pressure with mid-range projectiles like her shuriken. Not many people may know her since she's one of the newer mutants X-Men created, but Armor is one of the coolest Marvel characters in general that have been created in recent times. and I patiently await her inclusion in Marvel Rivals. With her power, she can create a powerful psionic exoskeleton armor around her body, giving her full protection. They're even able to grow in size and power, and I think she'd be a perfect fit for the game as the tank character. She wouldn't be a pure grappler per se, but she'd be in a large armor that takes up almost half the screen with slow lumbering movements but insane attack power. Or we could give her a unique quirk where her armor grows as the match continues and as she takes hits, leading to it growing bigger in power until she takes up half the screen, meaning the longer the match goes, the more you have to adapt your playstyle as armor. As armor becomes slower in her movement and attacks, meaning you have to rethink how you approach situations like going against a high movement character like Psylocke. Luna Snow has been exploding in popularity after being created for Strikeforce and then being added into the popular hit Marvel Rivals. But it's for those reasons that I'm not adding her to the roster, because never forget who was the first hit Marvel pop star before. Dazzler's an amazing character who deserves more love. She could be extremely unique in this roster as well. She could be a stance switcher, zoner, beatdown hybrid. She can brawl up close with the best of them with combo strings that can pop up the opponent for a combo or knock them back. Then, she can switch stances into her singer mode where she pulls up a microphone stand and starts her own solo concert, unable to move, with a brand new moveset filled with concussive blasts that knock the opponent back full screen, dazzling light shows that stun the opponent, and laser blast as a basic projectile. She can quickly switch between both stances, stunning the opponent or knocking them up with her concert stance, and quickly switching back and continuing the combo with her close quarter stance, meaning quick inputs and knowledge of the character can lead to devastating damage. The character would have a low skill entry but a high skill ceiling, meaning anybody can use her, but it takes someone special to master her. Lastly, we have our final character of the entire roster and of the DLC passes, but don't worry, we saved the best for last. In an X-Men season and in a game filled with the likes of Wolverine, Emma Frost, and Cyclops, there's no way we'd leave out the first woman of the X-Men pantheon, Jean Grey. She can be one of the most powerful characters in the roster with tons of zoning potential and long-range pressure with her psychic skills. She can have fast teleports, keeping the opponent on her toes, but the real damage is when you defeat someone who has her on the team. If a team with Phoenix on it is defeated with full bars of super, Jean Grey revives herself as the Dark Phoenix along with the rest of the team, able to call them in as assists but unable to swap them out. She'd have a whole new moveset fit for Dark Phoenix using her pyrokinesis, using her energy absorption to block projectiles and enhance telepathic abilities. She'd be an extreme glass cannon to balance this out, and she wouldn't have a full health bar, but once this character hits the field, you better take her out and take her out fast before her overwhelming damage and abilities steal the win from you before you even realize it. And there it is, ladies and genitals, 3 seasons of DLC and 15 extra characters to add to our already monstrous roster of 30 characters to close out our Marvel Tokon once and for all. Magneto, Mystique, Bullseye, Daredevil, Scarlet Witch, Moondragon, Hawkeye, Shang-Chi, Nico Minoru, Captain Marvel, Psylocke, Gambit, Armor, Dazzler, and Jean Grey. A fantastic roster if I'm allowed to brag for a moment, and one that I wouldn't mind seeing in Marvel Tokon at all. Do I think they're all gonna make the roster? Nah. But I do think this is a great baseline and medium for characters that are uber popular, unknowns, unique playstyles, and mix of personalities and styles. Whatever they do decide to choose though, I'm not worried, and I can't wait to see what fun decisions, designs, and additions they make for Marvel Tokon. I'm just super excited to play the game already. I can't believe we have to wait a year. Forget this. I'm disappearing again. I'll see y'all when the game releases. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so YouTube can send me money and I can buy a new PC to buy the game. Can y'all do that for me? Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.